Hello, friends. I am so glad you're here because we're going to talk about books. We're going to talk about an author that's new to me that you will not want to miss. So, let me just introduce you to my new friend, Shawna Coleing. So, welcome. I am so glad that you're
Thank you very
here.
much. Yeah,
Yes.
good to
Okay.
be here. Excellent.
And I
Mm.
love your accent. And I know that it sounds so cool to me. Although you
Mm.
don't think you have an accent, tell us why you have an accent. I want to hear about yourself and tell us about this amazing accent that you have.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Western New York State, Finger Lakes region, for anybody that knows it. And honestly, never thought I'd go too far from home. I wasn't an adventurous kind of person, but when I graduated from university, I got the opportunity to come to Australia and help start a church. And I thought, yes, I
Mm.
will take that opportunity. And then 3 months before I was leaving to come back to America, I met my husband. At the time, I was not interested because I was fully focused on, I'm like, God, whatever plan you have for my life. And then he invited me out on his little tinny, which I don't know what you call it in America. It's like where the motor's on the back and you steer it, you hold
Oh,
it
yeah,
and
like
steer one of those little things.
like a little,
Uh,
I don't know, not
I
a
don't know what you
rowboat,
call
but
it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So we went out on the Great Barrier Reef because that's where I live, and there's a few other people in the boat. And then Matt strapped this knife to his leg and grabbed a spear gun and jumped in the water, and I was like, "What now?"
What?
Like I don't know anybody who straps a knife to their leg like on purpose. And he came back to the boat and he had got caught this, like, I don't know if you can, this,
Yeah.
we call them crayfish, they're like lobsters in America, be the equivalent. And I just thought, who is this guy? And then I thought God was testing me to see if I was really committed to not, and God said, no, actually this is the man I want you to marry. So yeah, we were married a year later, and here we are, 20 years and 3 kids, and we pastor a church in the area. That's the coolest church ever, by the way,
That's
in
the
case you
name
ever
of the
come to
church?
Cairns. I know. No, no, it's just the coolest church
I
ever.
thought you were saying
It just
the
is.
the name of the church is the coolest church ever. I'm like, well,
No,
that
no, no,
I
no,
I would like want to go see just to hang out at the coolest church ever.
no. Yeah, yeah. No, no. I just personally love our church. So,
Oh,
so yeah. So we pastor a church, and I write books full time. So it's not a bad situation
so okay,
in
growing up,
Australia.
yeah, I'm like growing up. You
Mm.
probably never thought like I'm gonna live in Australia someday.
Oh
Uh,
no, never, never, ever, ever, ever. It
yeah,
was like this cool place that I thought maybe when I'm old and I can afford to travel to places like that. But here I am getting to live here and apparently having an accent. So,
yeah, and have an act. So
mm.
like, do you get to see kangaroos? Like, I think that's one thing we think of Australia is kangaroos or
Yes. Oh yeah, there, well, wallabies. We have a lot of wallabies just in the cane paddocks and everywhere. Crocodiles just up the road. Quite a big one.
so it, like, really is, like, the Australia that everyone wants to see with all the animals and the wildlife
Yes.
and wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's so
No
cool.
koalas in this part of Australia, so that's one thing we don't have up here. But I have seen them in the wild.
That is so cool.
So,
Okay, I
mm.
love that so much. Okay, so you never planned on living in Australia. Did you plan on, like,
Yeah.
pastoring or being part of a church
No,
plant?
no. I mean, I grew up in church, and I guess I always expected to go to church. And when Matt and I first started talking about getting married, he said, "You should probably know that I think that I might pastor a church one day." And I was like, "Oh well, whatever. Like, I guess if we're supposed to be together, then
Yeah.
I am too." So yeah, but I guess I never, and now, like, I mean, I preach and I do, all the stuff you do, and that was never, ever, ever,
That okay,
never on my
so
radar.
Australia wasn't, pastoring church, writing books. Were you interested in writing books
No,
growing up?
no.
Okay, so basically you had
Now
no
God just sort
idea.
of went here. I'm just
I know,
gonna, yeah,
like the coolest life ever, and you're like, I didn't even that wasn't even in the radar, which that's so cool.
no,
I
no,
love that so much.
yeah,
That
no. I started writing in my 20s, but not novels. I thought, oh, I can't write fiction. Like that's not my thing. I don't know how to do that. I'm not built for that. And I actually gave up writing in my mid 30s. I'd had enough, and
mm,
I was felt so relieved because I give it up and then I pick it up again and then I give it
Mhm.
up again and I was sick of it and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And then, but God had other plans.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
through a series of, I don't know if we have time for that story,
Yes, well,
but
now
and
you're
I guess
gonna have to
I'll
tell
tell it
me.
anyway.
You have to
No,
tell me
no, I'll
now
tell.
because I wanna hear. We haven't even got to the book
So
yet,
yeah,
which is super cool, but we'll get there.
no, no. I was so yeah, so I was so at peace. I mean, I prayed about it. God, do I give up writing? And I felt really at peace about it. And then I ran into a friend of mine who I see once a year at one of the regional women's church event things, and I see her for 15 minutes, and it's like, oh, it's so good to see you, hug, hug, and then I don't speak to her for a year. And she didn't know that I wrote, and she sent me a note after. She said, I don't know if you've ever thought about writing, but I really felt like I needed to send you a note and say that God wants you to write. And I was like, you kidding me? Like I was really happy.
I was just giving it up.
And so I was like, oh God, if this is you, I'm like, man. So I thought I'd better find some time because she's not the sort of woman who just says stuff like that. So I thought, okay,
Mhm, mhm.
I better give this a little bit of time. And so I don't know how I had a baby and two young kids. I don't know how I found the time, but somewhere I found time and I was like, God, what's the deal here?
Mhm.
And he just when I say God said, I don't hear him audibly. It's like in
Right.
my head, the thoughts and stuff. But and he said to me, so who's God near you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Mm.
It's like, okay, you are. And he goes, so if I want you to write and you don't want to write, who's right, you or me? And I thought, okay, well, if this is really you, God, you're going to have to confirm it in your word. So I picked up my Bible, started reading, thinking, I got God here because what's he going to say? And, I was reading about when Samuel comes across Saul after he lost his
Mm.
donkey and Saul's about to anoint him king in the book of Samuel. I don't know where you'll have to, if you want to read the story, I'll
It's in
find
there
it. But
somewhere, yeah.
it's in there somewhere. And I started reading, and Samuel said to Saul, come to this feast that I've got going on. And Saul's like, okay. And Samuel goes and he asks the cook, he said, give me the meat that you set aside for me. And then he puts it in front of Samuel, or Samuel puts it in front of Saul and says, this is the portion that's been set aside for you. Take it and eat it. And as clear as anything, God was just like, writing is the portion that's been set aside for you. You better take it and eat it. And I was like, okay,
The
I'll do it.
man, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
And so it was still, gosh, it's another probably 7 years before I published my first book. So it's been a journey. So that was an amazing event to look back at, but it was still, even after I went, okay, I'll write, it was still, I think 5 years before I finished my first novel and another couple of years before I published. And
Yeah,
so, yeah. And now I get to write full time. So I'm like, thank you, Lord. Thank
that is
you for
so
not letting
cool.
me give it up.
And what I
Mm,
love about that is, like, sometimes the calling comes, but we still have to walk it out. We still have
mm,
to live it. We still have to do it. We still have to sit
mm,
down and be faithful to it. But I think I love
yeah.
that God gives us those moments where we can look back on and
Mm,
say, "Okay, I just
yeah.
wanna, like, delete this whole document right now." And, coming from
Yeah.
experience over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have a purpose
Mm,
and you have a reason, and so,
mm,
I mean,
yeah.
it wouldn't be wonderful if all of a sudden we got the calling and the next day we just sat down and
Yeah. Yeah.
we wrote and it came out perfectly and we sent it in and it
Yes.
got published.
Yes.
Yeah,
It'd be
but it
nice if
really
writing was that easy.
is I know. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
novel that I have to finish.
Yeah.
If my publisher's, like, on right now, they'd be like, "You're still late on that book you were supposed to turn in,
Yeah.
and, now you're
Mm,
interviewing people." I'm like, "Well, because I thought I was
yeah.
gonna be done." Like, I thought I was gonna be
Yeah.
done with the book. That's why I set up the interviews
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I love
Mm,
that, that the calling's there, and then it is the faithfulness of, like, what am I gonna
mm,
write? And then all the parts of it, all the
mm.
characters and description and plot and all those things, which leads us to let me just pull up this.
Oh, yes.
So,
Drum roll.
Hidden Trial, and this is book
Mm,
1 in the Hidden Alliance series. Okay, I have to read the back
yes.
cover copy. I don't know if I've ever done this, when I interview someone, but this is very good, and this, I think, will pique the interest. So and then I wanted you to tell us how you got the idea, but I'm gonna read this, and I'm actually gonna hold it up
Okay.
so they can see the cover. Um, it says, "Charlotte chose the little town she calls home as a place to hide after a trip abroad goes wrong, but now she's longing for more out of life than playing it safe. So, when her estranged sister, an undercover agent, is injured and unable to continue her operation, Charlotte finds her chance for adventure and agrees to fill in for what should be a simple assignment. And as soon as we hear like what should be a simple assignment, we're like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
nothing is going to go
You know.
right here. Okay, but then this is my favorite part. Will has spent years searching unofficially for a close friend who is kidnapped. But after following a trail that goes cold, he's barely able to hold on to hope that she's still alive. So when his partner in an undercover operation is injured and she tries to persuade him to train her twin sister to take her place, like right now I'm like, yes, please. This is awesome. Okay. He's hesitant, not wanting to risk the life of a civilian until, with numerous lives at stake, he finally relents. Then, when he starts falling for Charlotte, he can't face the possibility of losing another person he cares for, and he tries to sway her to give up and go back to the safety of her suburban life. But when things don't turn out how anyone expects, Will and Charlotte find themselves in a fight they never anticipated, the outcome of which could end all of their lives. I'm like, the whole twin and undercover, she has to take the place of the sister.
Mm,
That is awesome. Okay, so how did you get this idea? And I want to know, like, after this one, the series, just tell me all the things because
yep,
it's
yep.
just captivating. I love it.
Yeah, so I love the idea. Okay, so I'm a small town girl who's come and found herself in Australia.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do you get a small town girl who's afraid to go out into the wild? How do you get that girl to go out and be a part of these crazy, suspense,
Hmm.
drama, crime, action stuff? And so I was just brainstorming that, and I thought, well, if she had a twin who was like the adventurous twin, who was doing something crazy, but then so undercover, and then the quiet twin has to help her out, and longs for adventure. Growing up, I always daydreamed. I always used to sit
Yeah.
and daydream about adventure. And so I was trying to think, how does that girl get to that spot? So the twin idea was just one of those ideas that I came up with for that. So yeah,
And
so that's where
then,
that
yeah.
came from.
And I like she has to because like lives are at stake. And then
I
he's like,
know.
ooh, I'm kind of falling for her, but no, you have to you have to leave because
Gonna protect
you're
you.
you gotta protect you. It's like the conflict, the pull, like,
Mm,
and so I
mm,
was thinking as I was reading the back cover copy, like the story arc of the rising tension, the rising, like
mm.
this is like a well written book when you're just like, okay, all is lost, they're all gonna die. Let's just give it up now. But no, no, it doesn't turn out that way. So anyway,
Mm.
good job. Fun
Thank
stuff,
you. Thank you.
fun writing. Okay, so when
Mm,
I was reading, I was thinking this reminds me of Lynette Eason, Irene
mm.
Hannon, Lisa Harris, which are all very good writers. So good job that
Thank
the
you.
same type of
Thank you.
suspense, action. I don't know what's going to happen. This is not looking good, but wait, there's more. So,
Yeah.
all that to say, super fun,
Yes.
and I love this is the beginning of a series. So
Good.
tell us, because I haven't read your other stuff, is this like a whole new series with whole new characters, or is it connected at all to your other books? How does that work out?
Yes. So the very first, I actually wrote under a pen name. That's how I originally started publishing, and then
Okay.
I moved over to Christian Romantic Suspense last year. So I wrote my first series, which is the Shadow Alliance series, and that has a character, Peter Black, who is a connecting character. So each book is standalone, but there's this character who appears in all of them and helps. And
Oh.
then I wanted to write another series, which is the Underwood series, which is a little bit different. It's got a bit more. It's got a Frank Peretti sort of,
Okay.
angels, and it's got a bit more
Ooh.
spiritual stuff to it. So if you like those sorts of things, the Underwood
Yeah.
series. Um, but I had a lot of my readers going, where's the next book? I want more of the Shadow Alliance series. And I thought, oh,
Mm.
I've just written this other series. There's this huge gap in between them. So I decided to continue on with Peter Black into, because the first four books in the Shadow Alliance series were about men that he was connected to. This next four books is about women that he's got a connection to, that
Oh,
he's
okay.
trained or helped in some, and he's married, and there's a, when you sign up for my newsletter, you get there, him and his wife, Peter and Jenny's story about how they met, which is its own little romantic
Oh,
suspense type
fun.
of
Okay.
book in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this new series is connected to the Shadow Alliance series. So if you like this one, there's four other books you can read while you're waiting for the
Well,
next books to come.
and that's what I was gonna ask.
Mm,
Okay, so this one is
mm,
just newly released. When was the release date
yeah.
for this one?
Oh,
Um,
don't ask me that.
is it like
August 3rd,
okay?
I
So
think,
but within basically
a couple
just
weeks ago.
like yeah, a couple. That's what a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
brand new, hot off
yep.
the
That's the
press.
brand new. Yep.
Yep, hot
Mm.
off the press. And then I was that's what I was going to ask. When are the other books in the series? How many are there going to be? Are they the same type of couple relationship in danger type of
Yeah.
things? Okay.
Yeah, so they're all pretty much, I try and do different types of relationship aspects, but it's all, the enemies to lovers sort of one is always
Yeah.
fun. Or I've got one of my other books is they knew each other's kids, and he
Oh,
was
okay.
and then they meet each other when they're adults, but he doesn't know who she is, and so there's all that sort of
Oh,
that tension and
yeah.
all that fun stuff. I love all that chemistry and that all that stuff to put. So that's always in there, and the banter, the back and forth sort of thing. But love to heaps of action and any twists and turns I can put in there. And so I'm about to send my next book in that series off to my editor,
Okay.
and that is due to come out at the beginning of October. And then the following book after that is coming out just after Christmas, and then the fourth book will be probably January, February. It depends on. My kids have their summer holiday during Christmas, so
Right.
I've got 2 months of kids at home. So,
Yeah. Well,
so we'll
and
see
I'm
how the
like
time goes.
that's really quick. As someone who
It
writes a
is.
lot of books and has kids at home still, I'm like,
Mm.
that's a pretty fast pace. So do you have
It is.
yeah.
That's I haven't always written that fast. I've just because I do write full time,
Mhm.
so that's what I do with my
Mhm.
day. And I've just recently got myself much more organized, and so that's helped pick up the pace. Because if you take out all the time you spend not writing, it's actually faster than. And so that's what I try and do. I try not to get too distracted and make
That's my
sure I'm putting
problem.
my
I'm
time. Yep,
homeschooling
butt
my
in the seat.
kids, I'm taking care
Ah,
of
yes.
people, and doing
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. You're doing interviews.
I'm doing interviews, I'm doing all the other stuff, and then I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I have
Mm,
a book deadline. I gotta
yeah,
get busy on this book." Well, that's awesome. Okay,
yeah.
so,
Mm,
so these 4 I mean, that's pretty good. By February, you said we're gonna have, like, all 4 books in the
mm,
series, so that's
yeah,
awesome. Like, that's not too long to wait. Because sometimes I know people say,
no,
"I don't like reading because you have to wait, like, a year between books." You're not gonna have to wait a year between books with these, so and that's exciting. That's really
yeah,
cool. I
mm,
love that. Okay,
yeah.
so how
Mm.
did you land on romantic suspense? Because 'Cause you're like, "I didn't wasn't thinking of fiction." And then obviously you switched to
I
fiction, and then now you're romantic suspense, which let me tell you, it is a challenge because you have all the action, all the conflict, the bad guys, the good guys, all that stuff, and then you have the
mm,
romantic element, which just a romance book on its own is enough work. But then you have to like put all their lives in danger. So like
yeah,
it's what I'm saying is there's people that write suspense and there's people that write romance, and then this like think the romantic suspense people are like double the work in one book. Basically, you're writing like two books in one book, but making it all make sense. So I'm impressed. So how did you land on romantic suspense?
it's just it's actually how I write. Like when I was writing under pen name, I was actually writing crime fiction, but it was
Okay.
basically, it wasn't quite romance, but there was romance in it. It was just
Mhm.
very a little bit, and I was getting really good reviews on those books. I ended up winning a scholarship because of one of the books, and just
Mm.
couldn't get any, like I just couldn't find my audience. And I realized when I actually wanted to start to share faith in my books. I'd written 4 books, and I was like, oh, these people need Jesus because they're going
Yeah.
through these terrible situations. They need Jesus. And so I thought, oh, I'd love to be able to put that into my books. And I started looking at Christian romantic suspense and all, the Lynette Easons and all those popular ones. And I was reading their blurbs, and I thought, gee, these actually sound more like my books than the books that are in my category. So I think I'm writing in the wrong genre. So I actually found it really easy. I think
Mm.
when you write a romance and you have to, in romance, you have to incorporate conflict.
Mhm, mhm.
So for me, the conflict is, somebody's trying to murder you, or
Yeah,
like they're
exactly.
trying to stop, child trafficking or drug runners or whatever, and save people. And so that's the conflict of falling for somebody. And I think probably in intense situations it's easier to fall for somebody because, it's that intense
Yeah,
sort of thing going on. So in a sense,
exactly.
it probably makes it easier in one way because you sort of they're so intimately that they're thrown together in these situations.
So it's
And
not like, "Does he like
mm,
me? Does he not like me?" It's like, "Run for your life. We need to get away. They're trying to kill us." I mean,
mm,
yeah. And then you have
yeah,
the locking eyes across the
yes.
bullets as they're
Like,
flying.
oh, he saved me.
"He saved me. Thank you."
Try not to be. I think the hardest part is try not to be corny. Try not to be too corny. Trying to.
Mm.
Oh, I think I just lost my. Can you still hear me?
I can still
My
hear you.
my. I,
I
I
can hear
might
you.
plug this in. They're
Yeah.
they're running out. They were
"Oh,
last being
no."
tuned. I'll plug this one in.
Okay.
Um. So yeah. So I think it's. I really like that the chemistry that it creates in those traumatic sort of environments.
Yeah, that's
So.
good. Good. Okay, so
Mm.
alright, so this one is Hidden Trial. Do you have the names of the other ones in the series?
Yes. So I think the next one's Hidden Ascent. I think.
Okay. You're like, "I don't
And
know." It's something like that.
Hidden Chance, I think, is number 4. What's the other one? Hidden, I don't know. They all start with hidden. They're all
Okay,
hidden
good.
something. So
Good.
that's why hidden. And with the Shadow Alliance books, they're all Shadow Game, Shadow Line. So easy to
Good.
easy to follow.
Okay, now this is
Mm.
probably a silly question because all authors, like, have a tons of ideas, but do you know what you're gonna write after this series?
I do. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited. That's probably you're trying to finish the series and you're like, oh, I want to get on to the next thing. So I've
Yeah.
got that ready to go. Have the first couple books already brewing. So I've got the next couple books of like all the books of this series are coming together, and then I've also got this other series. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
starting to
I
put that
know.
together. So
Just have to
yeah,
sit down and get it on paper now. I love it.
yeah.
Okay, so one
Mm.
thing that I love to ask people is what are some Christian novels that you've enjoyed? They could be recently, they could be something that you read a while ago, but we love hearing what other people love to read.
Yeah. I There's some of Francine Rivers, which is probably she's a popular one,
I know.
and
Yeah.
she's written some absolutely amazing, like The Sin Eater, one of my
Mhm.
favorite books by her. I
Mhm.
love that, and the Breath of the Wild, not Breath of the Wild, going into my son's video games.
Yeah.
The breath,
A Voice in
voice
the
on the
Wind.
wind,
A
breath,
Voice in the
whatever
Wind.
that series is. And
Yes.
I actually saw on the Avid Readers Facebook group, somebody said, did anybody else like just about die at the end of book 2? And I'm like, ah, yes, yes. But I got so mad at the
Okay,
end of book
so
2. I was
the
like,
truth
quick to
is
book 3.
so I'm in a writing group. We get together every year, with Francine, and then her editor.
Mm.
There wasn't supposed to be a book 3. It was going
I
to
read that on her website.
it was gonna
And her
end
editor's like, you.
it was gonna end in book 2 because she's like, "This is reality." And if Francine is very like, "This is reality, like, people need to know this
Yeah.
is reality." Like, the what's the one with oh, the angel wings on the cover of it. Oh my the Masterpiece, The Masterpiece.
Oh, yes.
She's like,
Mm.
I want people to get a glimpse of hell." Like, so I'm
Yeah.
cool because I'm not I'm cool. It's cool because I get a like when she first starts getting the ideas, I'm been able to
Mm.
brainstorm. But she's like,
Yeah.
this is reality. And so after book 2, An Echo in the Darkness, it was gonna be like, no, there's no more. There's no more. This is how it's gonna end. And then
Yes.
thankfully we have book 3.
I'm so glad her editor convinced her. I'll say I love happy endings. I love, like, you'll find in my books always
Mhm.
a happily ever after. I just I that's
Yeah.
I when I read, I love to feel good at the end.
Yes.
So
I know.
that's what I do.
When I read secular fiction and it doesn't have, like, a good happy ending, I'm so mad. I'm so or if they don't get, like, they just needed to get redeemed and they needed forgiveness and,
Yeah, yeah.
like, they could get all these awards.
Mm,
I'm like, "I hate that book." And people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Because, like, I'm
so
like you. I
depressing.
want the happy ending. I want some
Yeah.
type of, like, soul redemption, some they come to some
Yep.
realization of something. I want that. And so
Mm,
it can be extremely well written. And I'm still like, I hate this book.
mm.
I don't want to watch the
Yeah.
movie. No. So yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful for authors that
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to end happily. So okay,
Yes.
that's awesome. All right.
Mm.
So you mentioned, okay, so we're talking about Australia again. Summer break is when we're having Christmas. So I'm just trying to
Yes.
wrap my mind around this. And then the seasons are flipped and you guys have
We don't really
Christmas.
have
Yeah. So
we don't have sea I live in the tropics. It's wet or dry. It's hot and
yeah.
yeah.
So you don't have snow and you don't have like Christmas with Santa
No.
Claus and
No, I actually, because growing up in New York, where it's freezing for 4 months of the year,
Mhm.
I hated the cold. So when I
Mm.
first came to the tropics, I was like, this is hot, it's hot
This
all
is
the time. And now I'm like,
amazing.
oh,
Now yeah, so
I
I'm in
do miss,
Arkansas now, and so that's the same thing. I'm like,
mm,
okay, I just need it a little cold. Yeah.
yeah. So, and yeah, our Christmases are hot. They're hot and wet, and it's, you go swimming and you sweat, and I miss desperately. We took our kids home to see my parents to have Christmas over there in 2019, and we almost
Mm.
put it off for a year, which means we wouldn't. COVID happened right after we got back,
Right.
so my kids, it was great. We're flying in from New York to Buffalo on this little jet, and it's all locals except there's this Aussie family, and the kids are like,
Oh,
"I can see snow, I can see snow," and so everybody around them is like, "They've never seen snow before," so that was a lot of fun having the kids
that
see the
is
snow for the
so
first time.
cool. Oh, okay, so
So that was
I
fun.
have to tell
Yeah.
you my Buffalo story before we wrap it up. Okay, so I've been to Buffalo one time, and I went there to
Mm,
interview World War II veterans. So my
mm,
first novels are set during World War II with the 11th Armored Division,
mm,
and their second reunion I attended was in Buffalo. So that's like my husband. So this is such a God thing. He every year his company would do raffles for like they want to give everyone like big Christmas presents, but they do raffles for different things. He won two
mm.
round trip plane tickets to anywhere. And we went to Buffalo, New York. This is how much my husband loves me. We went to Buffalo, New York, so I could interview these World War II
That is
veterans.
love.
It is love. Okay, so we went in
Mm,
and it was like February, and there had been a
mm,
big whiteout. No, maybe it was in February. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, there was a blackout or whiteout. I don't know what they called it in New York City. So they diverted
mm,
Niagara Falls. This was in 2002 or something. Yeah. They
mm.
diverted the water to go power something. So we had tickets to go in the boat at the bottom of Niagara Falls, and it was canceled because there was no water. Like that you could see rocks and the
That I didn't even know they did that.
yes. So the guide there, because we're there at the park, and it looked amazing to us. Like we're like, wow, look at this.
Mm,
And the what whatever the parks person was there. He's like,
mm.
I've worked here had 20 years. I've never seen the rocks on the bottom of these falls. And
Wow.
so our claim to and fame is that we saw Niagara Falls when it was turned off. And that's the only time that I've ever been there.
Wow.
It was actually turned off. And well, there was still water, but it wasn't like as big as it usually is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my one
Oh,
time I've been to
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Now that
Mm.
I've told my Buffalo story, where can people go to find more information about you and then all of your books?
So everything is on Amazon. So you can read Kindle. It's in Kindle Unlimited if you've
Good.
got that. Paperback. Haven't quite got to the hardbacks yet. We'll see how we go with that.
Or audiobooks?
I have audiobooks done for the Shadow Alliance series.
Okay.
So
Oh,
they're on
okay. That's good
Audible.
to
So
know.
yes. And my narrator is looking at getting started on this Hidden Line series as well. So
Yay.
that's all coming up. Yes. Also I have a website which is www.pgturners, which is page turners, but so pgturners.com. And you can
Awesome.
find all the books on there. Or just find me on Amazon. Look
Yeah.
me up and
Very
they're all there.
cool. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for like you're a day ahead of us. So thank you for
Yeah.
starting your day with us here.
Yes. It's a lovely morning.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, we're
Mm.
wrapping up
Yeah.
evening, so
Yeah, yeah.
thank you for being here
Mm.
so much.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.